Thank you very much. I will just make note that the commissioners met in executive session to speak about personnel and legal matters just before the meeting. And I will offer an opportunity for public participation. You can come to the mic, speak about any issue that you'd care to speak on for 5 minutes. Keep in mind that any item that has a vote attached to it, you'll have another opportunity for public comment if we are voting on an item, but I welcome anyone to come up now.
Good evening. My name is Burke Fitzpatrick. I live on 402 Locust Road, Ward 6, I think it is. And I have a question about the anti-discrimination proclamation. We just said the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm wondering why we need a anti-discrimination proclamation if we have the Pledge of Allegiance, the Declaration of Independence, which says that we are all created equal, and also our Constitution. Pretty simple question.
We don't actually take questions at this time.
I know that. I
This is your
got that
opportunity
before.
to speak to us. Thank you.
I know that. I didn't get answered the last time I came either. That was a month ago, but not on that. So, thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dorothy Potash, a Radnor resident, 320 Julep Run. 3 months ago, I came and asked the Board of Commissioners to issue a proclamation against hate and anti-Semitism and to develop a plan for the prevention of and to respond to anti-Semitism and hate in the township. Tonight, due to the brave and persistent efforts of Commissioner Jones, the support and assistance of Superintendent Flanagan, Commissioner Myers, and President Mulrooney, you're introducing the Radnor Township Proclamation condemning hate and anti-Semitism. Please vote in favor of passing this proclamation and perhaps add additional language consistent with that of TE and other neighboring towns. The White House and its historic and novel whole society approach to combating anti-Semitism challenges all of us in our local communities to join the fight. I want to thank all of you for taking this very important first step to unify our neighbors across the township to stand against hate, as well as stand with our neighbors across the main line who have already taken such steps by issuing similar resolutions and proclamations. As you know, in just the past few months, hate incidents have only increased. White supremacist pamphlets have been dropped throughout Delco, Montgomery, Chester, and Philadelphia counties, and prior to our schools closing here in Radnor, there were several incidents of hate speech identified across large group texts spoken in cafeterias, buses, playing fields. Just this past weekend, there was another incident in TE, an anti-Semitic banner dropped by the extremist group White Lives Matter. To illustrate why this is so important for us as a community to address, I thought I would share a few statistics. According to the AJC State of Anti-Semitism in America report for 2022, 1/4 of all American Jews have been the personal target of anti-Semitism in the past 12 months. And 9 in 10 Americans, Jewish and non-Jewish, believe that anti-Semitism is a problem for everyone and affects our society as a whole. According to the ADL audit of anti-Semitic incidents in 2022, for the third time in the past 5 years, we've seen the highest number of anti-Semitic incidents ever recorded. These surges are attributed to an increase, 102% of white supremacist propaganda, a 49% increase of incidents in K-12 schools, a 41% increase of incidents on college campuses, as well as a 69% increase of bomb threats on Jewish institutions. In my many discussions with families, both Jewish and non-Jewish, kids, adults, I've learned that there are many in our township who do not really understand what anti-Semitism looks like or sounds like, and thought it might be helpful to give examples of what anti-Semitism is. Contemporary examples include, but are not limited to, calling for, aiding, or justifying the killing or harming of Jews, making mendacious, dehumanizing, or stereotypical allegations about Jews, an example being the myth of a Jewish conspiracy or of Jews controlling the media or other industries, the economy, government, or other societal institutions, accusing the Jews of being responsible for real or imagined wrongdoing committed by one single Jewish individual or groups or by acts committed by non-Jews, denying the fact, scope, or mechanisms of the Holocaust, accusing the Jews as a people of inventing or exaggerating the Holocaust, accusing American Jewish citizens of being more loyal to Israel or alleged priorities of Jews over the interests of their own nations, denying the Jewish people their right to self-determination by claiming the state of Israel as a racist endeavor, applying double standards by requiring it of a behavior not expected or demanded by any other democratic nation, using the symbols and images associated with classic anti-Semitism, comparing Israeli policy to that of the Nazis, or holding Jews collectively responsible for the actions of the State of Israel. If you or your children see, hear, or read statements like the above, this is anti-Semitism, and it should be called out and reported. Not all news is bad, however. The interfaith community across the main line has mobilized. Recent events in TE, Lower Merion, and across PA and the country have led many of our local faith leaders to take action. The Upper Mainline Ministerium, Rabbi Riegler, a Radnor parent and resident, Rabbi at Temple Shalom, Pastor Sarah Weisiger, spokesperson for the Upper Mainline Ministerium, pastor for the Trinity Presbyterian Church in Berwyn, Todd Stavrakos, a champion of the interfaith work in our area and pastor of Gladwin Presbyterian Church, and many others from an array of faiths across the Baptist, Lutheran, Mennonite, Muslim, etc. faiths have committed to fight anti-Semitism and hate and are currently working together to create innovative joint programming to build empathy and understanding across our faiths and their parishioners. They will be meeting as a large group in the fall, and I encourage anyone here, if you are members of a church, a mosque, a temple, to ask your leaders to join by reaching out to any of those leaders that I mentioned above. To our Board of Commissioners, I ask that you continue this important work and consider the following. Proactively speak out and respond in the immediate when hate incidents occur. Update our township website to create better communication, anonymous reporting, education, and support to prevent and respond to incidents, as well as collect data about them. Create a voluntary community relations committee or perhaps an anti-hate task force, and provide resources of support for the victims of hate incidents, additional education to prevent, and training to our township employees to spot and respond to incidents when they occur. Please vote to pass this resolution and continue to work to ensure Radnor is welcoming and safe for all of our residents and visitors, regardless of race, religion, national origin, gender expression, or disability. Thank you to everyone who stands with us. For those who came tonight to support these efforts, a huge thank you to the ADL, the AJC, the JCRC, and Federation for all the work you do to make the world a better place for everyone and for all your support. All these organizations have amazing resources to help fight hate. Please use them. Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
Good evening, Sarah Pilling, 29 Garrett Avenue. Last Thursday was the Parks and Rec meeting, of which I was very interested because of the issue of dogs, which will, if they ever make a decision, could possibly affect dogs in other parks. And I live down the street from Emlyn to Nellfield. I printed off the agenda. I came to the township meeting. I sat here for half an hour. I went outside and printed off the agenda. Obviously, the meeting was not here, but it was never announced on the website. I found out later that it was at the RT, whatever it's called, the community center, because I knew they were going to talk about Odoriceo. I don't think that's fair for the public to not know, to not have it announced where the meetings are. And because the meeting was not here, it was not recorded, so there's no way to go back and look what happened in the meeting to catch up to it. So I just want to point that out to you. I understand why they would want to have it there on Highland Avenue, but it's not fair to the rest of the residents unless you clearly announce it on the agenda. Thank you.
Is there additional public comment?
Good evening. My name is Lisa Schreiber, and I'm not a resident of Radnor, but I am a resident right next door in Tredyffrin Township. I live in Paoli, and I'm here to throw the support of the Jewish community and TE behind your resolution against anti-Semitism and hate.
Thank you. I really apologize. I'm going to step in here. I appreciate your support of this. Public comment is for residents of Radnor only.
Okay.
But thank you. Are there others?
Good evening. My name is Samuel Horsey. I live at 52 Wentworth Lane in Radnor in Garrett Hill, Ward 7. I've lived there ever since 1986. year after year, when we have these rainstorms, we have water in our backyard. I have pictures of the water in my backyard from my fence to half of my backyard. And it has been told to the commission that something would be done about it. Thus far, nothing has been done. I didn't take a measurement of the distance from my back fence to the statue that I have in my yard, so I can't give you the distance. But I do have pictures of it, more than a few years. So if you'd like to see them, I'll be happy to show it to you. But I hope that the commissioners would do something about this water runoff. It's coming from Conestoga Road down to 62 Wentworth Lane. So every house on the even side of Wentworth has water in their backyards when we have heavy rains. Thank you very much and have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Horsey. Anyone else like to speak?
Good evening. So we did not coordinate our visits. First time I've met that gentleman, but I live on the 100 block of Conestoga Road. And first of all, good evening to everyone. I live on the 100 block of Conestoga Road.
Can you state your name,
Jake
please?
Thomas Anderson, thank you. Definitely support our Jewish community as a resident. But I wanted to bring up the flooding and the stormwater management, the sewage management of 100 block of Conestoga Road, the 500 block of West Lancaster Avenue, the 100 block of Gallagher Road, and apparently other streets that are impacted as well. I've seen a lot of building going on, a lot of expansive developments being approved up above us, and I know a lot of that runoff's getting to us, and it's coming through our neighborhood before it gets to the lower, storm management system. And I haven't seen any improvement since I've been here. I've been here since 2014. In the last 4 storms, there's been 3 water rescues, 2 on Gallagher Road on the 100 block that required the fire and police involvement, and another one on the 500 block of Lancaster Avenue. That was 2 of those were just in the last 2 weeks, right, in the last 2 storms. Moderate storms, but now it's every time it rains. It used to be, the century storm. It has become a rain event, turns into a flooding event. There's rental properties along there that probably won't come and represent themselves because it's not important to them, but they flood and they take their trash and just throw it out in the street and get picked up eventually. But all the homes on 100 block of Conestoga Road flood. The homes behind us on Gallagher. It's just a total safety event. Additionally, sewage backs up along that 100 block of Conestoga Road when it does flood. So we've been fortunate enough to have the township mitigate a lot of that by installing some systems, but not all homes along our block have that. My neighbors regularly have to throw out a large quantity of their belongings every time it rains, and it's really sad to see. And again, nothing since I've been here has been done to improve that condition, address any of that. So I would hope that when you approve these additional building developments, whether it be homes or we put new banks in or we approve all this additional water runoff basically creation that you're approving, that you sort of help the people sitting downhill from all of this. And the other thing that I'd like to bring up is that on the 100 block of Conestoga Road, there are 34 telephone poles or utility poles, okay? So Synesis and Comcast have services on 34 poles. There should be 15 poles in that same stretch, right? For us, and all the wires hanging, it's been over 2 years now that these wires have been hanging. When you park, everybody here probably drives through the 100 block of Conestoga Road. It looks very poorish in that area because of the way our local businesses treat the neighborhood, whether it be the retired flag lady shop who's closed up and let weeds grow up, and I know that was Cabinets and now the Bruno Brothers or whoever, but at the end of the day, whether it be the auto body shop across the street letting their weeds grow, the utilities not taking care of their services, the township not taking care of the water runoff, the homeowners, the business owners that own the fraternity / family dwellings along our street that don't take out their trash. You know, when you're sitting at that light, you're looking at those homes going, wow, there's trash all over the yards. We're residents there, and we are impacted by these things that are not addressed. And we would really appreciate if the township did a little bit more. Jake Abel, I've addressed this directly with you multiple times, and as well as the fact that our children can't use most of the township services because there's no sidewalks, there's no proper crosswalks, so we can't even get out. The kids on our block can't even get out to get to the services. There is no way out. But I thank you, and there's a lot there. I didn't plan on coming here. I would have put it together much more presented here, but I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any other public comment?
Hi, I'm Eve Wyckoff, 100 Pembroke. I'm a Radnor resident. I also want to say that I would like you to vote yes on the proclamation against anti-Semitism and hate. And although our forefathers may have wanted to think that we were all created equal and wrote the Declaration of Independence as such, as humans, we've evolved, and it's sad to say we need this proclamation to get approved. So.
Other comments?
Good evening. My name is Joe Shuda, First Ward resident, and here tonight to talk about a couple different items. The first being traffic flow on Route 30, and during the rush hour primarily, when there are numerous intersections that do not have a left turn arrow that encumber the flow of traffic. Someone makes that left-hand turn or fails to put a turn signal on, traffic backs up pretty much all the way, both from Old Eagle School Road west and then, you know, going east to up near the Blue Route. It's that severe during the rush hour traffic. The other concern is on Old Eagle School Road, if you're aware, there's a 10'6" railroad overpass for the Stratford Station. And our street, which is Forest Lane and Fairfield Lane, a U-shaped street, the trucks that do not see that sign, or when they see the sign, it's too late, invariably they'll make a turn and come up a residential street. We've had tractor trailers, numerous commercial vehicles, you know, semi-trucks, straight trucks they call them, or stake trucks, stake body. And the potential for a problem is there because they're rushing to get around the intersection, and that usually creates a bit of a problem. We have also the Our Lady of Assumption Academy that during the hours from 9 to 9:30, noon to about 12:30, and then 3 to 3:30, about 138 students are being picked up in that area. It's a very nice academy. However, the parents do not really look at the area as a residential street, and they fly down the street. If they're running late, they come through there. The speed limit is posted at 25. That's probably way too fast, and we are really petitioning, and I know it's mostly associated with Tredyffrin as well, but I'd like to see a coordination of effort between Tredyffrin and Radnor to maybe have the academy start to utilize that large parking lot to have the parents drop off the children and pick them up. First, it'd be safer, you know, because there won't be any, you know, traffic on the street. And there have been numerous instances where children on our street have run out into the street because they're playing. They're not expecting people to come down there, and potentially, you know, we're going to have you know, an accident, and hopefully it won't happen. So those situations between the speed limit on Forest Lane being in excess of 15 miles an hour, the truck traffic that is turning off of Old Eagle School coming, you know, to avoid, it suggests maybe that a railroad crossing sign be put up on Route 30 so the trucks would not make that turn in advance. You know, maybe by Bertucci's, so they see that and they can reroute themselves, or at least pull over in an area where it may be more advantageous for them to pull over, because sometimes they'll pull over right on Old Eagle School, and then you also have a traffic issue resulting in there. Last but not least, as some of you already know and probably have seen, tomorrow night there's going to be another hearing for the conditional use. I know I'm preempting some of this, but we have some concerns, and as some of the folks here have stated tonight, the water issues are continuing to be a major source of problems for the residents, not just in our community in the Forest, Grant Lane area, but throughout. And I'm thinking there's going to be a item on the agenda tonight to speak to that from the development over in South Queen Avenue. So thank you, appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Is there any additional public comment? Not seeing any, I will move to the consent agenda. Is there any public comment on any item on our consent agenda, which is items 2A through G? Come on up.
Sarah Pilling again, 29 Garrett Avenue. I'd like there be discussion of item F, which is the new carpeting for the police administration system.
I will happily pull that off. Is there any other items on this consent agenda that the public would like to speak to? Is there any item that a commissioner would like to pull off? I am pulling off item F at the request of Ms. Pilling. Any other items? Okay, I will open it for a discussion on Resolution 2023-31, approving the quote of Havertown Carpet Company to furnish and install carpeting for the Radnor Police Department administration area and surrounding areas per the attached proposal in the total amount of $22,336.25 to Havertown Carpet Company was the lowest proposal received after obtaining 3 proposals. May I ask for a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thanks. And Mr. White?
Yeah, I'll
start with you.
Start and then ask the chief to fill in any details that I may miss. Going back several years now, we have approached the board with this type of purchase. This building is pushing 15 years old, and a lot of the high traffic areas, the carpet and the carpet is wearing thin. So this is a maintenance item. We're systematically going through the building. This particular area is down in the police department. I know there's, even last year when we had a similar item on for another area of the police department, there were concerns on the pricing. If you understand, the biggest part of the price is moving the furniture and the wall, the cubicle walls and all of the items sitting on top of the floor out, recarpeting and then putting them all back. So there is a high labor cost associated with what we're doing. And it's a big area. So again, this is part of a systematic redo of the carpet throughout the building. Chief, did I miss anything material? And noting that as part of obtaining the price, we did seek out 3 different proposals before bringing it to the board.
Thanks very much. I see there's public comment.
Sarah again, I would ask the township to delay the purchase of this carpeting. We're having an extraordinary summer. We've already had 2 sets of flooding. We have no idea what's going to move forward. The country is experiencing rainfall, the likes of which people have never seen. I would request that this be delayed until after we've assessed all the costs for all the rain events. We've got to go through hurricane season. The water off of the coast of Florida is already 96 degrees Fahrenheit, which is an instant accelerator of any hurricane that we would get on the East Coast. So I would prefer and request that this item be deferred until after the season's over, after the budget is done, to then spend it then, but to not be spending money like this when we have no idea what the immediate future is in terms of rainfall events. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there other public comment on this item? Okay. Any commissioners want to speak to it?
Yeah, Bill, out of the three proposals, were any of the three from a local company?
Commissioner, I don't have the addresses of the other people when we put it out. Everybody locally had an opportunity to bid on it, but I can't answer any particular one. Havertown Carpet seemed to be one of the closest people, but that's as far as I can answer to your direct question.
I mean, do you think a Radnor company would have bid on this?
I mean, I can say that they had the opportunity. We put out a lot of bids here, and there's a lot of local companies that choose sometimes to put in for it and choose not to for various reasons that I can't speak for.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add is that the bid limit within our code is $25,000, so we're below that. In situations like this, a lot of the times, they're informal processes where we're calling companies that might be interested. At the end of the day, we're bringing forward a company that offered the lowest. So in terms of local businesses, usually we're going with the lower price versus their physical location.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Other comment?
When would it be installed?
We would coordinate with them. We were trying to get it done on the weekend, to be specific. So there's a little bit of a challenge just because the police station is open. So it's the administrative area. So I don't have an exact date. We've actually put this before the board 5 times. It's been taken off the agenda. So we kind of had to push it off. We're just trying, as you guys are aware, in 2007, the building was built and dedicated in 2008. We got it painted. We're doing some things just to fix some holes and some other things in the wall, some very solid wear and tear. I think it's reasonable. We've ordered very durable carpet, as you can see when we did one replacement with the rip rugs. We put in, I'm no expert, but I believe they're called squares or tiles, so that if you rip one or a desk rips it, you don't have to redo the whole carpet. You put a piece in there, a tile, so we're doing the best we can to keep it up and also get the longevity out of it. I mean, I don't think it owes us anything. It's lasted a dramatic amount of time in a very busy division. They're all busy here, but just I can only speak to ours right now.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Staff want to add anything else? I will call the vote. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay, it passed. Thank you very much. And I will now ask for a motion on the consent agenda for the remaining
So
items.
moved.
And a second.
Second.
I think I heard that. So items A, B, C, D, E, and G of the consent agenda. I will ask for a vote. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay. Moving on to our business agenda. Our first item is the anti-discrimination proclamation. I want to thank all of you who have come tonight to support this. I'd like to recognize Commissioner Jones for her leadership in putting this together. Just a note, a proclamation does not require a vote. This is being put forward by a majority of the commissioners, and I would like to ask Commissioner Jones to, I will read the title to make it formal, to introduce it, and then I'm going to pass it to Commissioner Jones to speak to. So this is a proclamation of the Board of Commissioners of Radnor Township, Delaware County, Pennsylvania, to condemn all forms of hateful behavior based on race, color, national origin, ancestry, sex, gender identity, gender expression, sexual orientation, disability, or religion, including anti-Semitism. Commissioner Jones, you want to take it from here?
Sure. Whereas bigotry, violence, hate, and racism are completely at odds with the values of Radnor Township and have no place in Radnor Township. Whereas there have been a number of recent anti-Semitic vandalism incidents in neighboring towns, And whereas anti-Semitism, as defined by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, is a certain perception of Jewish people which may be expressed as hatred towards the Jewish people. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed toward Jewish or non-Jewish individuals and or their property, toward Jewish community institutions and religious facilities. Whereas, according to data compiled by the Anti-Defamation League, Pennsylvania alone saw a 65% increase in anti-Semitic incidents of assault, vandalism, harassment last year, and whereas anti-Semitism remains a persistent, pervasive, and disturbing problem in American society. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Radnor Township Board of Commissioners urges all Pennsylvanians and Radnor Township residents to speak up against hateful behavior as soon as it's witnessed so that we may create a more just, peaceful, and inclusive society for everyone. Be it further resolved that the Radnor Township Board of Commissioners urges our state lawmakers to promptly pass the package of anti-hate crime bills, including HB 1027, HB 1026, HB 1025, and HB 1024, currently being considered in the Pennsylvania legislature. And I'd like to, let me pull up my notes here, just say that when municipalities and residents, is it okay to speak? Okay. So when municipalities and residents work together against hate, we can restore respect, embrace the strength of diversity, and build inclusive and equitable communities all around. I want to thank Radnor Township leadership for banding together to set up safeguards against anti-Semitism, defamation, and all forms of intolerance and hatred against marginalized citizens. Radnor Township Manager Bill White, Superintendent of Police Christopher Flanagan, Radnor Board President Maura Mulroney, Vice President Maggie Myers, School Board President Amy Goldman, and last but not least, Superintendent of Radnor Schools Ken Batchelor. You have all been active listeners and participants when it comes to standing up against microaggressions as well as macroaggressions we've seen on the periphery of Radnor that have been brought to your attention and you have partnered to keep them from growing. We have talked about the importance of creating a culture of respect and dignity through education, compassion, and understanding. By urging one another to be upstanders, community members that stand up for others rather than bystanders, community members who stand down when they hear a disparaging, bigoted joke or witness someone being threatened. I was once afraid to stand up for part of who I am. I identify now as biracial, but when I was younger, I used to stand by when I heard a joke about Black people. It was easier for me then to swallow the shame. It was easier because being accepted was, at that point in time, more important than being othered or potentially losing friends because I could potentially make them feel ashamed by calling them out. I came to realize my dignity and self-respect was more important. Once I became comfortable advocating for myself, it became easier to advocate and become an upstander for others. It's empowering, and I encourage all of you to empower yourselves and others by standing up, by becoming upstanders. And it's hard to do sometimes. It really is hard to put yourself out there in defense of others. But when you do that, you empower others to feel less ashamed, to feel more accepted. And it's important to realize that it's not just Jewish people, it's African American people, it's LGBTQ, it's anyone who feels marginalized within a community. I've heard from South Asian residents, African American residents, LGBTQ, and Jewish residents and neighbors how important this proclamation is to them, because this proclamation is public acknowledgement and a reminder of just how important and valued they are as community members. So thank you.
Again, thank you all who are here in support of it. I know that the majority of our community is as well, and thank you for the leadership in this area. So moving on to our next item is 3B, which is the South Wayne Stormwater System post-July 9th storm update. And we have our Township Engineer, Steve Norsini, who will walk us through this.
So thank you, Commissioners, for giving me an opportunity to talk about the severe weather event of July 9th. I know most likely all of you got some questions on that. So a little context from an historical standpoint. This is the culvert that we all talk about all the time being constructed around the turn of the century. What is our combination of circumstances? Historically, we have enclosed streams in culverts, pipes, and channels. Increased urbanization, which has really just meant that we have a lot of homes, densely populated, a lot of impervious surface. The drainage area of this area is around 500 acres, 42% is impervious. Increased rainfall intensities and frequency have led to more storm events, and the old infrastructure really cannot take what comes down, right? It wasn't designed for that. So this is an interesting picture you've seen before. If you look here, this is Midland, between Aberdeen and Luella. There was actually a sizable pond and stream right there. And if you come down over here towards Pembroke, there's an even larger pond and stream. And the middle school and the fire company were also built on similar areas. So what does that mean? They're gone. They're put inside some type of infrastructure that is not sized for today, such as, if you can see here, the channel, a culvert, a pipe. That's where all these things have gone. What does that do? So if we look at the bottom of the picture, let's say this is the culvert. So it's full of water. Some of it is the stream. Some of it is our inlets that get water to it. But it can no longer overflow its banks into a floodplain or allow water to get into it. So what happens? All this water that's coming over land can't get in here. So it's in your street, in your backyard, and in some cases in your house. Why does it seem like the flooding is worse in the South Wayne community and all over the township? Well, that's because it is. Look at the Northeast, 71%. Rainfall intensity increase in the past 50 years. So we are getting more intense, more frequent storms than we have in the past. So when people say, I don't remember this, that would be true, right? We're getting them a lot. Some details of the storm. Extremely localized, and you'll see that pictorially shortly, graphically. From Saturday through Sunday in a 24-hour period, we got more than 5 inches of rainfall. If you are like me and watch every news channel's weather forecast, Radnor was flashing along with like 3 other communities, 5 inches, 7 inches, 6 inches. We really got hit hard. During a 4-hour period, we almost got 4 inches of rain, and we had several fallen trees causing loss of power. And as always, our top-notch police and public works were out. Police provided water rescues. Roads were barricaded. Inlets were cleaned as long as it was safe to do so. And we got real-time information on things. So let's talk about the system that is in question, the South Wayne Municipal Parking Lot System. The capacity of this system, as any system underground, is finite. It holds X amount of runoff. The system is designed to slowly release runoff. That's so we don't cause damage downstream. But what does that mean? When you get sequential rains, that capacity is taken up by those, and again, standard for an underground system. I'll go back a couple of years ago when Michelle Adams, the president of Meliora, was here, and what their design was to capture a 10-year, 1-hour storm, which is about 1.9 inches in an hour. That's a lot of rain in an hour, to take the road from feet to inches. So not saying the road would be perfectly dry, but you'd be able to drive through it because it had 4 or 5 inches of water on it. So we're going to step through the storm, literally, in this graphic. So let's drop a pin on the parking lot. We have a clock representing the time of day. It's going to coincide with the Doppler radar. This is our rainfall gauge. We have an actual gauge over on the Radnor Activity Center, amongst others. This is real time. It reads every 5 minutes. Over here, we have the capacity of the system. It's real straight line math here, but what we're saying is the system can hold 1.9 inches in an hour. The reality of it is we had ½ inch of rain the Saturday prior, so some of that capacity is already being used. And again, for some of you that don't live by weather, we're going to look at a Doppler radar key. Greens are okay, yellow is not good, orange is bad, and red is really, really bad, okay, to be scientific about it. So look at the clock. The storm has started. It's 10 o'clock. It's 10:15. We're in the greens and blues. Not a bad thing. Give it a minute. Watch what starts to happen. Okay, the rain is intensifying. We're getting the yellows, the oranges. It's much, okay, now we're in the worst of it. We're in the red. That's the worst. And we're still in the red. And we're still in the red. It's just sitting over us, dumping water on us. So, quick pause here. In 45 minutes, we got 2 inches of rain. 45 minutes. So, go back to that same newscast, that weather person, and you might remember hearing this. You know, folks, cancel your weekend plans, get your umbrella. It's going to be a soaker. We're getting 2 inches of rain all through Saturday and Sunday. We got it in 45 minutes. It's pretty intense. But we're not done. Here we are in the red, in the yellow, in the orange. It's noon. We're still in the yellows and the orange. It's pretty unrelenting. We are over capacity of the system at this point by 1 inch of rain, if you will. That's the bottom. We're still in the reds. We're still in the bad stuff, if you will. 1 o'clock. Starting to wind down. So you're going to see that in a 4-hour period, coming up, I'm going to let this go. So now the rain is tapering off. We're not in the yellows, oranges, and reds, which are the most intense. Except, well, here's another little one. It came back. It was the gift that kept giving. So here we are at almost 2 o'clock. And let's look at this graph, this right here. 4 inches, almost 4 inches in that 4-hour period. Over twice the capacity of the system that we have. Some things folks don't know. They drive down the road in a big rainstorm. Well, these are 5 storms where the road would have flooded but did not because our system was there. But you don't know that when you're just driving down the road. You're like, oh, that's all good. July 16th, almost 2 inches. June 26th. So July 16th was yesterday. I was there for about an hour and a half monitoring that. June 26th, 2 plus. June 12th, 1.5. April 30th, 1.19. And April 28th, almost 2 inches again. So to put up to bed a lot of the questions that we've gotten, the system is functioning as it should. It was designed for a very specific storm, for a very specific area, South Wayne. So the 1.9 inch 1 hour rainfall is what the system was designed for. It is not designed for 2+ inches in 45 minutes. So the system works fine. We can see that. We've had 5 storms that we know of where it took care of business. So given the rainfall totals over the short duration, our system and a portion of the school district system, again, using like straight line math, there was about 400,000+ gallons of water that did not go down to Midland, did not go on to South Wayne Avenue, although we did have a lot of water out there. Additional incremental projects can be done. I would like to say that Commissioner Jones is going to convene a town hall in September to take another look at the Cowell report and see what projects can be done down below this. So, oops, let me back up. Very clearly, the system works. This was more rain than the system was designed. Every system is finite, whether it's a system under somebody's backyard for an addition they've done. This was more rain than that system could handle. It's because I got calls, I know you all got emails, like, oh my goodness, what happened? What happened was way more rain came than that was designed to do. That was that intense storm. Like I say, we were on the news, not in a good way. We were pinpointed for the amount of rain we got. So that's really the crux of it. It's designed for X, and we got 2X. So again, I thank you, and if anybody has any questions, I gladly answer them regarding this.
Thank you so much, Steve. Answered a lot of questions that I'm sure we have had, and I hope that those who are here and listening at home at least got some information that they wouldn't have had before. I do encourage community members to continue to reach out to your commissioners. Mr. Norsini is, I've seen him make himself available to anyone who asks.
Really?
So I'm sure he can answer questions. At this point, we'll have some questions from commissioners. If we don't ask all the questions that you might have in the community, that's when you can follow up with us, and we will continue to explore this issue. I'm going to start. I have a couple. The big one is, I think, when this containment system was designed in South Wayne parking lot, could we have designed it differently, bigger, more capacity, and what, at the time when we were in the design phase, what were some of the considerations to bring what we have?
That's an excellent question, Commissioner. I kind of glossed over it because it was on one of my slides. My apology. So when we were looking to do this system, we looked around, and really what we have is township ground. That's what we have to work with, parks, parking lots, and the like. The only thing close to South Wayne, which was the target road, South Wayne Avenue, fire company, want to make sure they get out, and the school. So we maximized the South Wayne parking lot. Every square foot of area under that parking lot has what we call terror arches, the stormwater system. So that does limit us, right? So this storm, this 1.9 inches in an hour, fits in there, but that's the most we could do. So literally, if somebody were to dig in that parking lot, they're just going to hit terror arches from stem to stern. So that was a limiting factor, but it didn't take away from the fact that it was still designed to handle a specific storm. And I monitor these storms, so at one point, if we make a tweak, that would just be to make it more efficient, but we did maximize the area we had.
Thank you. I'll open it. I probably have some other questions as we move forward, but I will open it up to other commissioners. Mr. Riley, you want to start?
Yeah, just in that area, right, the water table's not that far down.
Not at all. We actually encountered that. So all the projects we've done, upcoming North Wayne Field, Cowan Park, this project, none of them can become infiltration basins because the water table's too high.
I didn't realize my mic was on this whole time. Sorry about that. So how quickly or slowly does the system release water?
Another excellent question. Design is about 72 hours, right? So you have 253,000 gallons that drains by, we call it slow release. It's a 4-inch hole, right? So that's why. And the whole reason is, from a regulatory standpoint and from a common sense standpoint, we don't want 250,000 gallons of runoff going in and then just blasting downstream. So that's why these underground systems, and this really goes for just about anyone, when you get sequential rains, so if you get rains for 4 days straight, and if you get 1 inch and a half an inch, these systems are filling up, right? This system, when we say 1.9 inches of rain in an hour, we haven't had rain for 72 hours. The system is empty, so to speak, but that is one of the items similar to what's going to be at North Wayne Field and Cowan Field parking lot. They're underground systems, a very finite capacity and a specific release.
I just want to make a statement just for the record. You know, I did get a lot of emails, and as you know, the culvert runs through a lot of backyards on Midland Avenue. And so I just want it to be out there for the record that there are different scenarios of projects that we can do, and we will go over this again with anyone who wants to come, whether or not you live in South Wayne. You know, I think you, sir, you can benefit from this information down the road. You know, we will urge everyone to come and send letters and emails and put it up on the website to come, and you'll also be able to view the information. But it's really important to understand that in order to solve this issue, it could be like an intense project or an invasive project to
It will be many projects. So
solve.
somebody had brought up the fact that at this intersection, Ivan Avenue, that system only catches like 3.8% of the flow. And that was done, that statement was made by Meliora by design to show how problematic this watershed is, right? So this system in the South Wayne lot was designed to address runoff on South Wayne and Runnymede solely. Will it provide benefit downstream? Sure, because it's holding back 250,000 gallons, but that's not its purpose. So when you have a watershed that's 500 some acres, 42% impervious, buried streams and creeks, ponds, there's never going to be like a silver bullet where you can say, what can we do to stop this? Almost invariably, it's going to be a combination of many projects that lessen it. And this is one. So we talk about, you know, various incremental measures. These types of projects do hold back water from going out in the storm. But there's also, South Wayne specifically, has little to no infrastructure for carrying. If you walk down the street, you don't see inlets except at the corners, right? We have the culvert of varying widths. It's pretty constant till St. Catharines, then it's huge, it's wide under St. Catharines, then it's an open channel, then it goes back in to being a stone arch culvert, and then it opens up way down by Orchard again. So for an area like South Wayne, North Wayne, there's never going to be, you know, one or two projects. I can tell you it'll always be many projects to incrementally cut down, and we'll always be working towards specific storms if we can. Let's look at there was a subsurface system in North Wayne Field. It was put in, Pannoni designed it. Nobody was here when that went in. That wasn't designed for a specific storm. It was, paraphrase, we have some space, let's do something. And they did, right? It's not curing all the ills, but it was the first incremental measure in North Wayne. And again, highly urbanized, it's hard to get land to do these. It's not always all about conveyance, right? You want to take other measures, but I would anticipate many projects to address this over time.
Other commissioners?
All right, Steve, I think you hit on one of my points that I was going to make, but I think it's good to emphasize because I just heard the word solve. We could we spent $5 million on this project in South Wayne, and we didn't solve the problem.
If I may correct you,
we mitigated.
We solved the 1.9 inch 1 hour. So I think we should distinguish that. And I don't mean to interrupt you, but that's the difference between somebody saying it didn't work. It does work, but this storm was not what it was designed for. So we went after a specific storm, and by all Meliora's calculations, that's fine.
Sure.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to be specific.
Fair enough. And I've met you out at neighbors' homes and properties where we've talked about, this is a 100-year storm. We just happen to be at that same property 3 times in a month. So these storms are increasing in intensity. So we're solving for a 10-year storm now. I mean those numbers change all the time. So
but again, our limiting factor was South Wayne parking lot.
So the point I'm trying to get across is, when we sit up here and we pass these and approve these projects and we talk about, the words we use, I just want neighbors to know that, there's a storm out there. I mean, we can't predict if 2 storms come back to back, it's not holding. no capacity. It's going to be overwhelmed, and we could see flooding in the roads.
Absolutely. And that's what we saw on July 9th.
Right.
Exactly.
So, I mean, we can talk about doing several projects, but there's still a storm out there or a scenario where even if you do 10 different projects, it could be overwhelmed.
Any system can be overwhelmed, even if we go through the various, and I think Commissioner Farhi, who's not here, has always asked me, is there a storm that's bigger? Yes. There's always something bigger that could come down the road.
Or you could have, or you could have 3 storms back to back to back that.
And then that system,
accumulate.
as well as all the other systems, and this is actually a great point. So even under our old stormwater management ordinance and our current stormwater management, when you put up an addition, you have to build a system, right? And that system's designed for a sizable storm. But the sequential storms you noted, if it rains and rains and rains and rains, all those thousands of systems, they're full, right? They're not going to be able to take it. And that's, when we get those types of rain, we get a lot of overland flow. But I'm glad you brought that up, because although this system was designed by Meliora and they're confident that it's going to take the 1.9 inches in an hour, we just had the bigger storm on July 9th. And if we go back to this slide, sorry. Reverse Doppler radar, folks. It's still bad, yellow and orange. Bear with me, I apologize for the time. I think this is very telling, right? We see extremes in weather all the time now. Heat, hurricane, tornado, rainfall. This is a very telling chart. Rainfall intensity increase in the past 50 years, and we are in the worst part of the country for that. I mean, we blow everybody away, and not in a good way. But there's no matter what's designed, there's always a storm that can be bigger. It's a valid point.
And I'll come back to, in old business, I want to address some of the comments made during public comment to my neighbor on Conestoga Road, 100 block, and talk about some of the stormwater issues and some of the other items that were addressed, just so that communication is open and some of the updates are provided. Bill, I see the chief's not in the room. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about the rescues that were taking place that day. How many water rescues and how many cars lost in that area?
Yeah, I apologize. I don't have that information. I would have to rely on the police department or the fire company to provide it. The focus tonight was primarily on the system and how it performed in the storm.
Sure. Do you know if we used the water rescue vehicle?
I know we did not, because it is currently in repair.
How long has it been in repair?
It's been in repair for, the alternator's out. And the problem with those vehicles is it just takes time. It's been out for a bit, and it's going to be out for a bit longer, a couple weeks at least.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's unfortunate. Bad timing, I guess.
Yeah, there's never a good time. But at the last meeting, I think we talked about the fact that the street sweepers are down, and those are great tools when cleaning up after a storm.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, we have one water rescue vehicle, and when it's out, it's out. We don't have the benefit of multiple vehicles to help in that area.
Okay. Well, hopefully we'll be getting that back soon, and I'd appreciate an update on the timing on that.
Yeah, I can tell you or pass along the frustration from the police department and the urgency on their side to try to get it fixed. It's a matter of like many things that we're dealing with. The parts and the labor and all. It just takes more time nowadays than it has in the past.
Yeah, and did we, one of the other low-cost mechanisms we've used to help save property is we've opened up parking lots to neighbors so they don't have to park on known streets that flood or in municipal parking lots, did we send out a notice?
Yeah, so the downside, well, we were not given the opportunity of advance warning with this storm. Where that has been successful in the past is when there's a hurricane coming up the coast and we see it coming days in
Right.
advance, we're able to do that. In this case, it was one of those deals where if the bullseye gets you, it gets you. If not, you could have just a normal rainy Saturday morning or Sunday morning, as it was in this case.
So going forward, if the township isn't notifying neighbors, but the neighbor feels one of those storms is imminent, and they parked in a parking lot and were ticketed, is there recourse? Do they have the option to come in and say, we parked there to avoid?
Yeah, I mean,
damaged
we're going to
vehicle.
deal with that on a case-by-case,
Yep.
but, I hope the board and the public understands that when one of these events is going on and we're out rescuing and there's significant flooding, ticketing people and towing and that side of what we do as an operation is at the bottom of the priority list. It's not even something that's going to register.
If the storm doesn't end up hitting, but they're parked there anyway.
Yeah, again, I can't, I'm not going to make promises here, but on a case-by-case basis, those are things that we will review in trying to work with our neighbors, because we absolutely see the problems. I mean, our folks are out in it too, trying to help our residents out.
Sure.
So, yeah, we're want to be more part of the solution than the problem.
All right, and I'm going to use this opportunity.
Commissioner, just real quick.
Sure.
So there's no prediction for what we and the other places encountered, right? We get these emails that say, you are in slight risk, or you in marginal risk, you are in a marginal risk, but nothing told us that, Radnor, you're gonna get 5 inches of rain. They pop up because of the heat and the humidity. A little bit north of us got 7 inches of rain. There's no good predictor for that. They just say, hey, this can happen, and we happen to be one of the ones that got the trailing storm that just stayed over us and over us.
Yeah, I just want neighbors to know that, if they feel like there's a storm and their vehicle is, where it's parked is in, harm's way, that they can move it and have the sense that it's going to remain there and be safe, and they're okay to park there.
One, I noticed that the chief's back, so he can answer your questions. And the other is, I have found that when you call ahead of time to the police department and say, I'm parking here for X reason, there's almost certainly a support of that decision. So I would say to those in the community who are concerned about that, and you need to find a municipal parking lot to keep your property safe, just give a ring to 911, let them know your license plate number and where your car is and why, and I can feel pretty confident that we, like Mr. White said, being part of the solution and not creating more headache for people who are suffering through the ravages of a storm. Chief, Commissioner Abel, will you repeat your question now that the chief's in the room?
Chief, I just had questions on the number of water rescues, and then I had a follow-up question on whether we used the rescue vehicle, which I'm told is out of service, and if you have an update on that time frame, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, Commissioner. We have on record 8 water rescues. There were some disabled vehicles that may qualify, but we had specifically 8. Just real quickly, if I could mention the Radnor Fire Company and the excellent work they did during that time, helping get people out of the water, and the Radnor officers and Public Works to alleviate those problems. It can be very dangerous. If you saw our last Thursday About Town with Molly Gallagher, was talk about the turnaround, don't drown. So we always want to reiterate that. So it is important. There was probably about a dozen vehicles, I don't have it right in front of me, that were actually towed, not all water rescues, but just received water damage and had to be removed at a later time from whatever respective area they were in. The water rescue truck, Commissioner, when we went to test it with the upcoming storm, we found out that the alternator had been damaged. There's some type of, I'm not a mechanic, but there's a back feed. It's been removed, shipped to California, and we are dramatically on top of it because we were impacted by not having it available. I probably lost some of my short hair over this. I'm very thankful for the Public Works guys who like dropped everything and got the alternator out of the vehicle, and we shipped it to the facility that works on it. And then we're just finding out why there is a short with it. Otherwise, the vehicle is operational normally for that. So we will gear back up, and we'll keep you informed when it's back in service and keep the manager up to date on that.
We didn't endure any damage to any other vehicles during the rescues, did we?
Luckily, no fire company or police or public works trucks were damaged. Unfortunately, some people made some, what I would call questionable decisions, sir, about driving into that water and caused some of the problems. You just, if you have that much water around your doors or your car, you know to back out of it, get out of it, because otherwise the vehicle, because of the buoyancy, the tires and the gas tank will lift off the ground, and then you can't, even if the engine's running, the tires won't work. So it changes very dramatically and quickly.
Yeah, and I'm just going to use this opportunity to advocate again. You know, we've got known streets that flood, and people continue to try to drive through them. So down by the fire station, Banbury, I still think the arms are a good option, low cost, and one, you know, likely saves the driver. Two, doesn't put our first responders at risk.
Comments from other commissioners? Commissioner Larkin, Myers. I just have a question going back to your comment about we can only do stormwater management in land that the township owns. Or not only, but that's where the big projects go because we have access to that land.
Right, like, well, the school district's allowing us to use, so that system I mentioned from like 20-some years ago, that's in North Wayne Field, which is owned by the school district, and they also allowed us to do the subsurface system we're doing for the parking lot there, so.
So my question's more about private homeowners, and is there anything that we can do as a township to help provide connection services support if a private homeowner who has significant flooding issues because their house was built on one of those ponds that was filled in with I don't know what, over 100 years ago. Is there a way to talk with private owners who might want to mitigate in their own property because we can't get in there to do it with them or for them?
I encourage anybody to call me. I'm going to be meeting with some folks this week and next week. Sometimes it's disheartening because it's what we call overland flow. So you live at the bottom of a hill and all your neighbors are above you and you're getting their water. So this is where our stormwater ordinance, I know not everybody likes it, but the reason we have those different categories for either groundwater recharge or stormwater management is to try to do incremental changes, right? So a lot of the homes predate our stormwater management ordinance, but when you add on or make certain changes, well, now you have to at least address the new impervious. And of course, new homes, new buildings, they fall under our ordinance completely. But I would gladly meet with anybody. I meet with folks, and I can make myself available, you know, after work, so to speak. It's easier for them. I would gladly, you know, we have it on our website and in our grading permit package, whether it be a rain garden or a rain barrel. By itself, no, but there is strength in numbers. So over time, many people doing many things all start to add up to reduce the flows that go out. We have the tree trench project in North Wayne, right? That's not a stormwater management project. It's not a flood reduction project. It's a best management project that's going to take some of the overland flow that comes from the houses and put it back into the ground. I hope to do many more and not just there because those are those little incremental things. So it's all by little pieces that we have to try to adjust. But I will gladly meet, if any commissioner knows, I'll gladly meet with anybody in that regard.
Thank you. I guess one question is you had a slide that showed other storms where we were able to manage the storms based on our current systems. Mm-hmm. During this big storm, were there other systems that were not kind of reached to capacity and were able to solve in certain areas, maybe smaller?
So On July 9th, the North Wayne Field system was again, it didn't fail. It was just more rain that it could take. And when that occurs, it comes down the driveway and out onto North Wayne Avenue. Poplar flooded. And just this Sunday, yesterday, Banbury was flooded. All right. North Wayne was not. Usually, oftentimes they go together, but Banbury by the Wawa was flooded. So from our systems, you know, we have small systems like the tree trench. That kind of rain is more than they're going to, at one point, they're going to fill up to. But we didn't hit any water table issues in North Wayne when we did them, which I was very happy to see.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Norsini? Very enlightening. Thank you so much for doing this.
If I can add,
If
I
you
want to
can
thank Molly Gallagher, our public information officer. She has a press release that's out on the website. So I would encourage residents to read that press release or hopefully watch this meeting. And I'll just leave everybody with this again. The system does what it's supposed to, but when there's too much rain, it's full. You know, nothing failed, nothing went wrong. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.
Madam President, if I could just, while Mr. Norsini's making his way back to his seat, I just want to thank him. He missed that part of his presentation. Steve is out in all of these storms. So when we're talking about where floods are coming from, where the water's flowing from and to, it's not anecdotal. It's Steve up to his knees watching it flow and driving around town watching it, and he has a firsthand knowledge of where this water's coming from and where it's going. In almost every case, that's been backed up and supported by the engineering experts we've hired to design these projects over time. In addition to the 20 or so projects that are in various stages of design and contemplation right now. A couple he mentioned, we also have the West Wayne Preserve project, which is another massive flood reduction type of project in a different section of town. That is in its latter stages of the planning and pre-construction phase. We'll be moving forward on that soon. But I just wanted to make sure that we thank Steve, too, for what he does to help us out in these events.
Thanks, Mr. White. Moving on to item C, which is Resolution 2023-65, authorization to award construction contract B23004 for the replacement of Chamonix Road, right? Chamonix Road culvert and retaining walls to Richard E. Pearson Construction Company, Inc. to include contingency and construction inspection and administration in the total amount of $2,200,000 to be funded from the Stormwater Fund. May I get a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Norsini, do you want to lead us in?
Thank you, Commissioner. So several years ago, the East Culvert Bridge, the culvert literally fell in upon itself. So we replaced that under an emergency contract. We've been monitoring this, and luckily we've had the ability to do it through sealed bid instead of emergency. So what this project entails is the culvert that on Chamonix Road, right by the pond, if you will, that culvert is, we had a feasibility study done, and our engineering firm, Carroll Engineering, noted that there's no cost benefit to try to fix it. It was in need of replacement. And that's how we're going through with this. So there's precast structures that will be delivered, but this is a little unique because there's, I don't know if you, I know you've been there, so there's a very long concrete sluice that goes down, actually takes the creek to the creek and goes around the pond, but there's a valve, an existing valve that doesn't work very well that feeds the pond. So as part of this project, we're going to leave the base, the floor of that in. We're going to put new walls and footings in. We're raising the wall on the pond side so that when flows get high, they're not constantly overtopping and really they affect the path. And then we're also going to pave a portion of the path about 30 feet, 12 feet wide, 40 feet, so that that's where it currently erodes all the time now. That section of path is always in bad shape. So higher wall to stop some of the water from flowing, a new valve which will allow water to feed the pond a little more efficiently, and then pave that area just in case to make sure that it stays in place. And we're respectfully requesting that you award this contract to Richard E. Pearson Construction in the amount of $2 million. Their bid is 1.7, but with the contingency and the inspection, it's 2.2.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions or comments from commissioners?
I'm very much looking forward to this project. This is a area that's really hazardous around the path around Fenimore Pond, and it'll be great to at least, I mean, I wouldn't want to pave the whole path, but if we can keep the water in the pond, in Gulf Creek, and then the path whole, I'll hand it over to Ward 1 in good shape.
Broom swept, please. Steve, is this funny coming out of the bond?
Stormwater fund.
So I thought stormwater fund was for lower ticket price items, and then, you know, when you're looking at 2.2, that would come out of the bond.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, it's all being paid for by the stormwater fee and out of that fund. The two different mechanisms are, for projects 500,000 and lower, we're using cash in the fund to do those projects. Anything greater than that, we're using the bond proceeds. So in this case, we'll use the bond, but the bond is being paid for through the fee.
Yeah, and this was a planned project. This isn't bumping another project that was on the list and ready to go.
No, it's been part of the plan since we learned of its condition a couple of years ago. Yeah.
Okay.
And I know the cones have become a nice aesthetic to the area, but it'll be nice to get rid of them as well.
All right.
We thank the kids for throwing them in the creek every week. So.
All right. Thanks, Bill.
Sorry, question. How old is the old one? Ballpark.
Commissioner, I wish I mean, I've been around for a while, and it's been there as long as I can remember. So I'll say it's vintage. I don't have an exact date, but the one retaining wall is falling in, the parapet wall is falling in. It's in really bad shape.
Yeah, I understand that. I just, you know, when they put these in, like this one hopefully will last, you know, probably 100 years or whatever.
Correct. So the other one was an emergency one, and we had to do it as quickly as we could because there was no, you know, we didn't have the ability to plan. So that was a plate arch. This is going to be precast concrete, like Conspan. So, yeah, both will last a long time, but this should be a very good culvert.
Other questions? Is there any public comment on this item?
Michael Kearney, 124 Walnut. I've looked over the plan. I think it's really good. It's a great idea and all of that, but I want to comment on the aesthetics. I don't think it's a good idea to have steel guardrails coming up to a bridge. There's no steel guardrails in the historic area at all. It would be much better if the sides of the walls of the bridge were just done in concrete with precast stone or something like that to sort of mimic the bridge that's 100 feet away from it, rather than having, I don't see any need for a guardrail on either side, actually. And as far as I can tell from the plan, it's hard to tell from the agenda submission, but it's not clear that the part of the bridge that you would see visibly as you crossed over the bridge is going to be plain concrete. Is it going to be some kind of fake stone or something like that, or precast concrete? I don't want to call it fake stone. But I think given the historic nature and the fact that a bridge, 50 feet away from it has been rebuilt, it's been rebuilt with the precast concrete stone on it, I think the aesthetics would be much better for the neighborhood and for the adjoining park, which I've been to talk to you before about, and I won't say any more about that now. But I think I'd like to see that change made, just to improve the overall look. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I can provide some information, Commissioner. So
okay.
The aesthetic will be the same as the other bridge. So that's a form liner on the parapet walls. Basically, it's all poured concrete, but the form mimics the shape of stone, and then we have somebody come in and tint it, and that's what gives it the color. So we use the same form. We will use the same form that was used on the previous bridge. The guide rail is a regulatory requirement based. I mean, this is what our traffic engineer tells us, that we don't have an option here, and from a liability standpoint. So that's why we have that.
Could you still,
I'm sorry, sir. And this is not intended to be a back and forth. I would encourage you to have a conversation with Mr. Orsini to have more comments are welcome to us if you'd like to come to the mic. If you'd like, we're not going to give you a commitment from the bench on this, but if you have more comments, I welcome them. If it's a Q&A you're looking for, we don't do that during public comment. And I would encourage you to go to Steve with questions. But if you want to make more comment, please do.
I have one more comment then, is the fact there's still, on the bridge itself, one half is wall, one half is a guardrail. Could you at least get rid of the guardrail on the bridge part and put a wall there instead?
Thank you very much for your comments. Is there any other public comment on this item?
All right, Tom Anderson. So first of all, a lot of respect and trust in Steve. He's done a great job for the community. Yeah, he's done a great job for the community over the years. I've only been here for a decade, but I've interacted with him many times, and he's always been outstanding. I would say this, if this project develops into something that modifies, make sure, I would encourage you to support Steve and the recommendations he makes to modify this as needed for the community and their input, right? And then I also encourage you to continue to spend our tax dollars in the storm fund on other projects as well, just as vigorously as you are on this one. I don't know how much impact there is to the immediate homes around that area that this is going to solve, but there's a lot of need in the community, South Wayne, where this money could be used to help protect our assets and investments as well. So Steve's doing a great job. Definitely encourage you to support his recommendations. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments?
Cameron Nazareno, 243 Willow Avenue. Excuse me. Thank you very much. Really do appreciate all the work that's being done. I would also second Michael Kearney's request for consideration of the aesthetic. I think, interestingly, when knowing this is not the Fenimore Woods improvement project, but way back in 2016, the pond was included in that project. So I think there is an understanding that the Fenimore Woods Park includes the wooded area as well as the pond, and so they do go hand in hand. And I think the historical aesthetic of the entire area and the integrity of that is important. So I second his, I know you can't answer questions, but I guess that seems like if we vote yes on this, are we committing to have that guardrail, or is there an opportunity to potentially consider other options that may be more aesthetically pleasing than a guardrail?
If I may answer. So guide rail,
Oh, you don't have to. If that's not okay, because I have more to say. That's all right. I appreciate that, Steve.
If we could keep this
that's
to
okay.
comments for our
Yep,
consideration,
that's fine.
and if you have questions, you know Steve is incredibly accessible.
Yes, definitely, because most certainly the first time.
And I know from experience that any project, we really take into consideration the aesthetics and the effect on the community. So
That's great.
I know that that's how Steve presents his project. So, but please, more comments.
One other comment that I would like to make in my observations and time involved in discussing the pond is that for quite some period of time, the valve, which is most certainly and clearly a valve that I've observed for many, many years, for quite a long period of time was not operational. There was zero water flowing from Gulf Creek into Fenimore Pond. And so I know the very valiant attempts that the men made within the township to work to try to keep the path repaired came to, did not end up working out. But predominantly, and you can go to the pond today and stand there and look and see that predominantly the overflow came beyond the waterfall. So I'm curious that the raising of those walls on the side of the weir, I guess if that's what that's properly called. I don't believe that that's actually what we saw. And during many of those floods, which actually eroded the path significantly, the valve was not operational. If you go to the pond today, it's actually quite remarkable how robust the pond looks now that we have the water flowing again back through it. So that's a really wonderful thing, and I appreciate the work done on that. I personally am not a proponent of the asphalt. I think of the tap trail, and quite frankly, still am quite miffed that our beautiful red buds are gone, and what I considered a landmark of Radnor Township in the spring when you drove into Radnor have been removed and replaced with an asphalt sidewalk. So personally, I believe putting an asphalt sidewalk in a park that we are working hard to fight to preserve the natural aesthetic, I encourage potentially to look for something else that might be an option that would provide safety and security and prevent the erosion. But I just find the idea of an asphalt sidewalk in Fenimore to go against everything that park represents for the township. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there other comments on this issue? Anything from commissioners? This was item C. Thank you. So I will call the vote. All in favor for Resolution 2023-65, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Moving to Resolution 2023-66. This is authorizing the solicitor to provide recommended administrative code Chapter 5 of the Township Code updates at a price not to exceed $12,000. I'll ask for a motion.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Peter, do you want to speak to this?
I'll try. John did talk to me a while ago about this, and I know he's had discussions with the board over this. We looked into what we estimated time-wise it would take us to rewrite this. I think the administrative code is rather old. It needs to be brought up to date, probably into this century. And we need to, I think, double check to make sure all the references in there, all the legal references, all the laws referenced are currently correct and up to date. And I think also, I think John, I know John has a whole bunch of, or a list of items that he wants to tweak that he's encountered over the years, and we're going to address those also.
Thank you. I'm just going to read a bit from the memo that's in your packets, which is the proposal is to update the Administrative Code Chapter 5 of the Township Code. Chapter 5 was originally adopted in 1977, subsequent to the voter approval of the Township Home Rule Charter. There have been piecemeal updates of certain sections of the code over the years. However, much is outdated and in need of an update. He gives examples and then what it would take in order to get the work done. So that gives a little bit of context. I don't know if Mr. White, you want to add anything?
No, that's what the proposal is.
Okay.
I guess maybe the only thing to add is that each of these corrections and cleanups are going to be brought back to the board.
That's right.
For board's consideration as we step through this process.
Great, thank you for adding that. Is there any comments from commissioners, questions? Anything from the public? I'll call the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. That concludes our business agenda, and I will move to the reports of board liaisons. Is there any report from committees or boards? It's summertime. I'm not sure that everybody has been meeting. Yeah, please.
So I am not the liaison to the Parks and Rec Committee, but I did happen to go to the Odoricio meeting last week. I'm sorry, Ms. Billings, that you didn't know where it was. I got it off the township website that's where it was. It wasn't on the agenda, though, I agree. And we'll just make sure that we take care of that. I'll mention it to Tammy and make sure that the location is always on the agenda. I apologize for that. On the other hand, it was a very interesting meeting about sort of a potential redo of Odoricio Park, which, as Commissioner Abel has said many times, is in need of some help. And it was really one of the first community meetings to get everyone's input into how the park should be redone and what people desire out of that park. So it was really a helpful meeting.
Great. Any other reports? Moving on to new business. Is there any new business? Is there any old business?
Yeah.
Commissioner Abel?
Yep, thank you. And for Mr. Anderson, who brought up a few topics, I was going to mention a couple of these anyway, but it's a good opportunity, and you gave me a few more to add to the list. So, Steve, I'm going to walk through some items, and if you could just give updates, I'd appreciate it. Stormwater was a big topic tonight. In Ward 6, what projects do we have coming down in the near term that would benefit the neighbors? And so we have the projects, but then talk about the 100 block of Conestoga and how these projects would impact that area.
So if all goes well, we'll be before the board next month asking for award of the South Devon Flood Reduction Project, which is really the West Wing Preserve, as well as Friends of the Radnor Trail Park. That's meant to cause relief. So on July 9th, South Devon flooded, right? And again, that storm most likely was of a greater volume of this. This, again, is geared towards the 10-year, 1-hour event that Meliora found was statistically significant as a storm here in Radnor. But that's to alleviate a couple things. It's to alleviate the flooding on South Devon in that particular storm and below, as well as to some folks who live along the creek. I know there's an inlet that will be placed like on the corner of South Devon and Conestoga. I don't know if that's going to, what kind of a difference that would make for the 100 block of Conestoga. We may have to look at that as a different project. I mean, since this is similar to the project that was just awarded by the board, so that's designed and awarded. This is prepared for award, but we will look at that.
And then we have a second project, correct? That we have a meeting on Monday night here? Or Wednesday night?
Two projects. Again, so these are infrastructure projects. One is for South Devon between Devonwood and Devonwood, if you will, it's a loop road, to replace a severely deteriorated storm sewer pipe. Again, nothing fancy. It's just replacing pipe that's bad, but it involves driveways and curbing and sidewalk. And the other one, there is an old storm sewer that runs behind homes, the homes between Morris and Clover Lane. And that storm sewer is literally falling apart, and in big rains, water comes up into people's yards. Sometimes there's geysers. So we're going to abandon that and run a new pipe down Morris and South Devon to eliminate that. Just quick note, both of those projects were designed by Ben Wagner, our staff engineer.
And we'll be discussing those projects in greater detail Wednesday night, 6 p.m. in this room?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, so those projects are really going to help neighbors downstream from Conestoga. So the 100 block of Conestoga, like what, do we have anything on the books that would support that area? Or is that problem really caused by what's going on outside of Radnor Township in Tredyffrin with their development?
I have not looked at the 100 block of Conestoga specifically. We know a little bit further down, if you remember, again, when we had those presentations from Meliora, a huge amount of water comes to us through Tredyffrin. And Little Darby Creek floods out of its banks because of that, not because of what it's going to happen at West Wayne Preserve or at Friends of the Radnor Trail. I haven't looked specifically at 100 block, but we will. I don't know if it can be addressed in this project, but it may have to be a future project, sir.
Yep, I'd appreciate just looking at projects that we have on the list to see if any of those would help the neighbors on Conestoga. Second topic, utility poles. So, we all know that there are a number of utility poles on Conestoga in the 100 block. Many of those are double poles. Behind the scenes, I think the township has done a lot of work. It's not advertised, so Steve or Bill, if you want to give an update on where we are in the process of getting those wires moved over and the double poles taken out.
Yeah, I'll just, it's like earlier, Steve, if I missed something, please feel free. We have a part-time property maintenance inspector that about 3 years ago we assigned to take over working with the utility companies to put as much pressure as we can as the municipality on them to clean these types of things up, whether they be the double poles that exist along Conestoga there, which is obviously a pretty tight area and not ideal, to other areas of the township where we've got wires hanging from past installations, just for lack of a better term, just kind of sloppy cleanup from the work that they do from time to time. And other situations where they've left poles behind for months and months and months. We've had other areas of the town where we've put pressure on them there. So Mr. Bruno is in regular communication with representatives at PECO, Comcast, Verizon, and each of those companies each have subcontractors that have their own specific infrastructure hanging on those. So it is a laundry list of responsible entities that have to move their individual infrastructure off of the old pole onto the new pole. And it really does, it takes forever and it is maddening, but Bill is on them as much as we have control to be on them. At the end of the day, as the municipality, it is not something that we have any kind of control over. The utility companies operate outside of our jurisdiction. So in this case, it's Mr. Bruno using positive relationships and a lot of pressure to try to get it done.
Yeah, and just so neighbors are aware, I think we're down to 1 or 2 utilities that still have to transfer over, and then those double poles will be removed. And Mr. Anderson and neighbors on the 100 block of Conestoga just know that, I'm constantly emailing the township to make sure that those are front and center on the radar screen. Weeds, unkept properties at businesses on Conestoga, which, don't want to place blame, but that's not the 6th ward. I think that's actually the 1st ward. Where are we at in that situation?
So as the manager noted, Mr. Bruno, who does a banner job, reached out and made contact to that one establishment that you noted. His notice of violation was sent. We give them 10 days. After that, it goes to our acting zoning officer, Patty Kaufman. She meets with the solicitor to make sure all is well, just like Kevin did. And then a violation will go out with teeth, a timeline, and very specific possible fines. So that is being worked on as we speak.
Yep. So again, neighbors in that area, just be assured that there's a process that has to be followed. It's not instantaneous, and it takes time. But we're working through that process. So either we're gonna we'll get that area cleaned up one way or another. But hopefully it doesn't come to fines and violations. But that's part of the steps to get it resolved. And I appreciate the township working as quickly as possible to address the situation. And the final item that I think Mr. Anderson listed, which is frustrating to me, because my goal in the ward is to make the neighborhoods walkable. Since I've been commissioner, I think we have 7 new crosswalks. I want kids, I want families to be able to pass safely to friends' homes, to parks, to schools, without parents having to be concerned. I'm happy with the progress we've made, but there's still that crosswalk from South Devon across Conestoga. That's an issue. And the last update I had, it was one property that was holding up the process. And so, Steve, do you have any more information on that?
No, and this often happens, Commissioner, so our best schedules that we put together do get stymied by easement acquisition, so we're still struggling with that at this point. Letters go out, more will go. That's the problem that we sit at right now. So we have full intention to get that crosswalk bid this year as soon as I can wrap that up. And Dennis Capella works pretty tirelessly, but some folks are we're literally at a no reply. So I'll talk to the solicitor and see if there's another avenue we can go through.
So for the neighbors, we're close. I think we need one approval, and we can, move forward and take more action as a board. But again, these things take time, and we're just going to work through and hopefully get support and approval from the neighbors on that street.
I'm going to now call for any final public participation. Is there any comments to be made? And again, if you can keep it to comment to the board, and we don't typically do Q&A.
Sorry.
No, thanks.
Thank you for your time. This is my first time here, but obviously my third time up here. Hopefully So 3 things I want to point out about, Jake, thank you. I appreciate it. I've supported you, and I appreciate that you support our community, and I hope you continue to do that. Okay. Comcast
And can you step to the mic?
Comcast and Synesis continue to hold up those Doublewood projects all along Conestoga Road. Okay. They do have to face you in other ways. They may not be regulated by you, but they do business in your community, our community, and they require franchise agreements. And when they come up for franchise agreements, I would just implore you to hold them accountable and remind them of their poor performance over the years. It's the wires are everywhere, their poles are everywhere, and we do have power over them beyond just complaining and yelling at them. 100 block of Conestoga Road, the 5, I wish they were up there, all 5 events, I've recorded both on my home security monitoring as well as with my cell phone. All 5 of those events, we had flooding in our yards and out in our streets. So they were minor events for the community. They were major events for 100 block of Conestoga. The water runs off of the 500 block of Lancaster Avenue. It floods there. That is the same storm pipe basin, whatever that is called, that comes right down to Conestoga. We have inlets on either side of the road, and the water geysers up out of that because there's so much water coming out of Lancaster Avenue down there. We basically are the receiving side of all the water that runs off up there. So that is a major issue. So if it's not being addressed, that's where we see it. The road is washed away. When you drive down that little hill, you'll hit a pothole. And that is because every time it rains, the water continues to erode that pipe. I believe it belongs to the PennDOT. I'm not 100% sure. I've seen them out there working before, but it's, again, now has washed away. Okay, so those 2 things, right? Comcast, Synesis, they need to be held accountable when they face you for franchising, and it looks a hot mess out there. And then the water runoff, if you're not doing something about it, we appreciate it. Thanks.
So moved.
Second.